Most Christians are setting themselves up for the most spiritually useless season of their lives, and they're calling it retirement. You've been saving, budgeting, planning for the day you can finally stop working and relax. But here's what no one told you. A worldly retirement will leave you comfortable, bored, and completely sidelined from the kingdom work you were designed to do in your most experienced years. Proverbs 22:7 warns us, "The borrower is slave to the lender." And right now, millions of Christian retirees are enslaved, not just by debt, but by a retirement vision that came from Wall Street, not Scripture. They planned to escape work. God planned for them to escape distraction. They saved for comfort. God wanted them free to serve without limits. And the gap between those two visions? It's destroying legacies, wasting wisdom, and turning the generation that should be mentoring into the generation that's just managing. But 4,000 years ago, a man named Joseph cracked a different code. He went from prison to prime minister, from broke to the second most powerful financial steward in the ancient world. And he did it using a strategy that didn't just survive a 7-year economic collapse. It saved an entire nation and protected his family for 400 years. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you 7 specific habits Joseph used to build a debt-free, purpose-driven retirement that honored God and changed history. Not theory, not feel-good principles. The exact playbook a biblical leader used to thrive during famine, while everyone else was barely surviving. And if you apply these 7 habits, you won't just retire debt-free, you'll retire dangerous for the kingdom. Genesis 41 tells us that Pharaoh had a dream no one could interpret. Joseph, still in prison for a crime he didn't commit, was brought before the most powerful ruler in the world. And Joseph didn't just interpret the dream. He gave Pharaoh a financial strategy that would define the next 14 years of human history. 7 years of abundance were coming, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. And while everyone else would spend the good years celebrating, Joseph told Pharaoh to do something radical: save 20% of everything. Not 5%, not 10%, 1/5 of all the produce during the abundant years. Now here's where it gets convicting. Joseph wasn't saving for a vacation. He wasn't saving so he could stop working and relax by the Nile. He was saving so that when the crisis came, he'd have the freedom to serve, the resources to bless, and the authority to lead. That's the Joseph principle. Proactive preparation during your earning years so you can survive and thrive during your non-earning years. And it starts with rejecting the world's retirement trap and embracing 7 habits that most Christians have never heard of. Let me show you. When Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of Egypt's economy, Genesis 41:34 says Joseph immediately began storing 1/5, 20% of all the produce during the 7 abundant years. Think about the discipline that required. Everyone around him was spending, upgrading, living it up. The economy was booming. Why not enjoy it? But Joseph knew something they didn't. The famine was coming. And the people who prepared during abundance would be the ones who feasted during scarcity. Now I know what you're thinking. 20%? I can barely pay my bills. But here's the hard truth. Most of us can't save 20% because we've inflated our lifestyle to consume 100% of our income. Every raise gets absorbed into a bigger house. Every bonus disappears into a nicer car. Financial experts call this lifestyle creep. The Bible calls it poor stewardship. Because if you truly believe that God owns everything, Psalm 24:1 says the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, then setting aside 20% isn't a sacrifice, it's obedience. Here's how to start. Set up an automatic transfer of 20% into a separate savings account. Make it automatic. Can't do 20% yet? Start with 10%. Start with 5%. But start, because the lean years are coming. Job loss, health crisis, economic recession, and the Christians who prepare during their earning years will have freedom and resources to bless others when everyone else is panicking. Proverbs 22:7 doesn't sugarcoat it. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Slave. Every dollar you owe is a dollar that controls your future and chains you to someone else's agenda. Joseph understood this. Genesis 47 shows us what happened when the famine hit. First, people gave Pharaoh their money, then their livestock, then their land, then their freedom. Debt does the exact same thing to you. It starts small, a credit card, a car loan. Then it grows, and before you know it, you're 55 and you owe more than you own. But God wants you free. Here's the strategy. List every debt from smallest to largest. Pay minimums on everything except the smallest. Attack that one with every extra dollar. When it's gone, roll that payment into the next debt. This is the debt snowball. Imagine entering retirement with zero debt. No mortgage payment, no car payment, just complete financial freedom to give, serve, and bless without limitation. Here's where retirement planning goes spiritually off the rails. We start thinking we own our money, but Psalm 2400 destroys that illusion. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Everything you have. God's, your house, God's, your 401k, God's. You're not the owner. You're the steward. And one day, you'll give an account for how you managed what He entrusted to you. When you see yourself as a steward, you stop asking, how much can I accumulate? And start asking, how faithfully can I manage what God has given me? Joseph didn't hoard Egypt's grain. He stored it to distribute during famine. He saw himself as a steward of Pharaoh's resources. That perspective saved a nation. What if you approached retirement the same way? Here's a practical step. Answer this question. If we saw our retirement as God's money to be stewarded for His purposes, how would that change our saving, spending, and giving? Because when you stand before Jesus, I retired comfortably, won't earn you well done, good and faithful servant, but I stewarded your resources faithfully. That matters for eternity. Proverbs 13:22 says, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. But look closer. It says a good person, not a rich person. The emphasis is on character, not amount. Here's the hard truth. If you leave your children money without teaching them biblical stewardship, you're cursing them, not blessing them. Statistics show 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, and 90% lose it by the third. Why? Money without wisdom is gasoline without an engine. Joseph didn't just save grain. He taught his family how to survive in Egypt. He passed down wisdom that sustained the Israelites for 400 years. Here's the habit. Once a month, have a family finances meeting. If your kids are young, teach them about tithing and saving. If they're adults, share your retirement plan and vision for generational blessing. Don't let money be taboo. Make it a discipleship opportunity. The greatest inheritance isn't a bank account. It's a generation that knows how to honor God with their finances. One of the biggest threats to peaceful retirement isn't market crashes. It's comparison. You scroll social media and see friends traveling the world, living in beach houses, and suddenly your paid-off house feels inadequate. Paul addressed this in Philippians 4:12. I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. Notice he said, I have learned. Contentment isn't natural. It's learned. It's fought for. Joseph had every reason to be bitter, betrayed, falsely accused, imprisoned, but he trusted God's sovereignty and stewarded every season faithfully. Here's a habit that will change your life. Every time you're tempted to compare, stop and write down 3 things you're grateful for. Gratitude is the antidote to comparison. When you cultivate gratitude, you stop seeing retirement as a race to accumulate and start seeing it as an opportunity to finish well. The world sells retirement as the ultimate goal. Stop working, relax, enjoy life. But the Bible has a different vision. Psalm 92:14 says, they will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, still bear fruit in old age. The biblical vision for your later years isn't leisure, it's fruitfulness. Moses didn't hit his stride until 80. Caleb at 85 said, give me this mountain. Anna served in the temple into her 80s and witnessed the Messiah. Your retirement years aren't meant to be a slow fade into irrelevance. They're your most impactful season. You finally have time, wisdom, and freedom to invest in what matters most. Joseph didn't retire at 40 after saving Egypt. He continued to serve, mentor, and lead well into his later years. Here's the habit. Start planning now for how you'll stay fruitful in retirement. Will you mentor young professionals? Volunteer at your church? Disciple younger believers? Invest in your grandchildren's spiritual formation? Don't wait until you retire. Start building those relationships now, so you transition from full-time work to full-time fruitfulness. Jesus said it plainly in Matthew 6:19-20. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Here's the question that should shape your retirement strategy. When you die, what do you want to leave behind? A big bank account? Or a legacy of lives transformed, souls saved, and kingdom impact? Joseph's legacy wasn't the wealth he accumulated. It was the nation he saved and the faithfulness he modeled. Here's the final habit. Decide right now what percentage of your retirement income will go toward kingdom work, supporting missionaries, funding ministry scholarships, building wells, discipling the next generation. Make it part of your plan, because the only thing you can take into eternity is what you invested in people and God's kingdom. Everything else stays here. Before we continue, if this is challenging you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the biblical financial wisdom coming in future videos. Let me make this actionable. This week, do 3 things. First, set up an automatic transfer for whatever percentage you can save. Even if it's 5%, start the Joseph savings habit today. Second, list every debt you owe and commit to attacking the smallest one first. Freedom starts with one eliminated payment. Third, schedule a family finances meeting. Start the conversation about legacy, stewardship, and generational blessing. These aren't just financial steps. They're acts of worship. 7 debt-free habits for a peaceful retirement, rooted in Joseph's strategy from Genesis 41. Save like famine is coming. Eliminate debt like it's slavery. Redefine wealth as stewardship. Pass down wisdom, not just wealth. Fight comparison with contentment. Reimagine retirement as fruitful service. And invest in eternity, not just earthly comfort. These aren't tips, they're spiritual disciplines. Ways of honoring God with every dollar He's entrusted to you. And here's the promise. If you implement these 7 habits, you won't just have a peaceful retirement. You'll have a purposeful one. You'll finish strong. And you'll hear the words every follower of Jesus longs to hear. Well done, good and faithful servant. If this video convicted you, share it with someone who's planning for retirement the world's way instead of God's way. And if you want more biblical wisdom on money, stewardship, and legacy, check out the playlist in the description. God bless you, and may your retirement years be your most fruitful.